Hi, everybody. Welcome to our second YLuck get-together. I guess this is not a get-together. It is technically a Hangout, a Google Hangout. Our first call was a good old-fashioned conference call. So thank you, everyone who participated last month in that. And for the first-time participants, welcome to our first Hangout. We're experimenting with this technology. So at the end, we'll follow up with an email with a bunch of other stuff about YLuck, but please let us know what you think of this format versus the normal conference call. We'll try to figure out together what the best mechanism is. What I wanted to do today, I've had a chance to meet a number of you in person. I've heard from a lot of you on email and on Twitter, and I always get three questions from lots of you. And one, you get lots of questions about my boss, President Barack Obama, and especially, and I think part of this is because we're building up to another presidential campaign back in America, and that's a lot in the news. And I get lots of questions from you guys about how President Obama became President Obama way back in 2008. A topic I normally don't talk about, but you guys keep asking about it, so I wanted to share some thoughts about that. The second question I get a lot is, all of you are doing interesting things in your careers, are contemplating what you're going to do. And I get questions of basically career advice and any tips I might have. And then the third question I get is, YLuck, as you guys encourage your friends to join, what is it? Where is it going from here? Those sorts of questions. And as I prepared for today, I thought in answering and talking about the Obama campaign, which I want to do for a few minutes, it actually gets at questions 2 and 3. So in talking about the Obama campaign and what I learned from it, I think it contains in there some practical and tactical advice for you in your careers, and it talks about how I think we're going to grow YLuck Young Leaders UK together. So if you give me a few minutes, I'll dive in. I have some PowerPoint slides that I am going to walk through with you now. All right, so you should be seeing a picture of a very young-looking Barack Obama in the middle of a cornfield in Iowa, taken in 2007. We have another computer set up simulating what it's like to dial in, so hopefully you're seeing this. Okay, so the question is, how does Barack Hussein Obama, a junior senator from the state of Illinois, go in 2007 to this? This is less than 2 years later. That is the same Barack Obama standing there in front of 2 million Americans on a cold January day getting sworn in as President of the United States. So the question I got a lot from you is, how did he go from alone in a cornfield to in front of 2 million people? And certainly, and I don't want to, this is not where I want to focus today, but certainly, I mean, he is a gifted person, an amazing speaker, a great politician, a great leader. All of those attributes about him are really important. But there is another lesson that I learned when I look at these two pictures and I think about that journey, and I was able to participate that as a volunteer on this campaign. And I want to introduce kind of a geeky term, but one that's important and really the point I want to make today. And it has to do with fractals. Now, I'm sure a number of you already know what fractals are. For those of you who don't, there are these things that occur in nature. A snowflake, which I'm showing you now, is a great example. And there are things that, if you think about a snowflake, it is made up of tiny snowflakes. And if you look at the tiny snowflakes that make up a snowflake, it's made up of still yet tinier snowflakes. Or this sort of broccoli-looking thing. You look at it and it's just made up of tiny little versions of itself. And if you go online, you can Google fractals and you can see all the different ones. Coastlines are fractal in the sense that you can look at them from space and they look a certain way. You zoom up all the way down to the grain of sand that makes up a piece of coastline and it looks like a coastline. It's really kind of cool out there stuff. And it's interesting. And if you take this idea to the next level, the technical term, when you talk about fractals, it starts with what they call a seed pattern, which in this example, and we're going to build sort of a tree out of this, you start with a really simple seed pattern, you repeat it 3 times, you keep repeating it, and it leads to that big, beautiful, I think, looking tree right there. But it all starts with that one simple pattern, repeated and repeated. And so when I look at these two pictures, Obama in 2007 in a cornfield, and this thing, I look at it from a fractal point of view. Because if you pull back on the camera, what he was doing in that cornfield was engaging with those people you see there in the foreground of that picture. So he was listening to their concerns. He was talking about what he planned to do about them if he was elected. And importantly, he was asking for their help to help get him elected, to help win the caucus in Iowa, and empowering them to go forth and tell other groups of friends who weren't in the cornfield that day to please go help as well. And so when I look out at that image on the right of the screen at 2 million people, I actually don't see 2 million people. I see little groups of 6 people and 6 people and 6 people, and that pattern that was repeated every day in Iowa, and then it was repeated in Ohio, and then was repeated all over the country by empowering individuals to go spread the word in a very fractal way. And I think that is something that we're doing right here on the call, on this Google Hangout. And as you think about your careers, think about, is what you did yesterday, if you repeated it and repeated it and repeated it and repeated it, what you want tomorrow to look like. And I think it's interesting for all of us in our careers to apply that fractal test. And it's a hard test because sometimes it doesn't give you the answer you want. But if you hold yourself to that standard, I think it's pretty good, which brings me really to the third and final point before getting to some of your questions, is that's what we want to do here with YLOC. We started out small last month, and we said at the end of our last call, hey, let's go get bigger. Guess what? We've grown 5 times as big in the last month. Why? Because each of you has reached out to your friends, to your networks, and asked them to get involved, and they've applied, and they've been accepted. So we're growing. And it starts with just a few of us, but if we do that fractal thing, we keep repeating that pattern, get smart young leaders of the UK wanting to connect to the US and opportunities in the US, that's a really good thing. That's our plan for YLOC. For those of you who are YouTube fans, you may have heard of the show Between Two Ferns, Zach Galifianakis. Does that ring a bell? You should go check it out on YouTube. He did a great interview. It's a comedy show with President Obama a few years ago. It's hilarious. In homage to him, I have 1.5 ferns that I'm sitting between. That is deliberate. Ferns also, by the way, are fractals, which is neat. So let me get to your questions. We have a question, and I'm reading it here on the screen. Question from Marianne, and she asks, I was wondering whether it might be possible to set up a YLOC blog to accompany the scheme where members could post their experiences of YLOC events and their thoughts on broader topics, including the special relationship, travels they might be undertaking to the United States, etc. So Marianne, thank you for your question. The short answer is yes, that's a great idea. So we've done that. We've created a blog. We, right after this call concludes, or this Hangout concludes, we'll send you all an email with the login and the password. If you want to go post anything there for our group, go for it. Great idea. Next question, Robert from Manchester asks the following. With regards to the special relationship, how important, if at all, is it to solving the environmental issues we face around the world today? This is mostly with regards to climate change and global warming. Thank you, Robert, for that question. It's a topic we've been following for a long time here at Mission UK. There's going to be a lot of discussion around this around the UK, back home in the United States, and around the world in the run-up to the big climate conference in Paris in December. Your question really gets at the special relationship angle of it. And I think before talking about the future, it's worth acknowledging that your country, the UK, my country, the United States, have been historically a huge part of the problem, right? You guys industrialized first, we followed soon thereafter. We didn't know that carbon dioxide would have these effects that we now know it does, but we put tons together, both of our economies as we grew and expanded, tons of carbon up in the air. So we have a huge responsibility to go do something about it, which we are. Your country's doing its part, we're doing our part. I think it's fair to say that the US often gets criticized for not doing more and sort of caricatured. And some of that has to do with us not signing the Kyoto Protocol back in the 90s. But it's worth noting, A, that it was a US scientist, Dr. Keeling, who actually first started measuring climate change and carbon dioxide in the air in Hawaii at the Mauna Loa Observatory. So really important early scientific work. But also, in the last 10 years, no country has done more to reduce their carbon emissions than the United States. So we actually are doing a lot. President Obama's doing a lot, just made a big announcement last week about power and coal, did a lot on vehicle, high fuel efficiency standards in his first term. So lots of stuff he's doing. But it's also worth saying that even if the UK and the United States and other developed countries emit absolutely nothing, which is unlikely, but let's just say we do nothing for here forward, but the rest of the developing world continues to develop in a high carbon way, the way we did in our past, bad things happen. That's what the science tells us. So that's why the United States, under President Obama's leadership, and Secretary Kerry worked so hard to get a bilateral deal done with China around climate. So that was a bilateral one, but that builds good momentum towards the climate talks that we have with the whole international community in Paris in December. So US and UK, big leaders, requires big leadership, but it can't just be us two. We have to bring others along with us, and we have to do our part, and I think we are. Okay, next one. This is from Amir in London, who says that he has recently won an award at the British LGBT Awards. First of all, congratulations, Amir. Awesome. He said, for my work on LGBT rights, seeing the recent change and ruling in the United States on same-sex marriage, there is an opportunity to share learnings, strengthening the relationship further between the US and the UK. What can we do to help, and how can we share best practice and provide guidance? Well, I guess building on Mariam's suggestion, which we took, and we've now created a blog that you all have access to. Amir, I would love to ask you if you'd be willing to share what you won the award for, share your best practices on that platform. That's a good start, and let's see where that leads. But please keep up the good work. Last question. I saved the toughest for last. I think that's fair. This comes from Lewis in University of Greenwich. Do you, Mr. Ambassador, enjoy football? If so, which NFL team are you a fan of? And as a follow-up, does he think, who does he think is going to win the Super Bowl? I love talking about both kinds of football. I shouldn't say this, but I'm going to. My favorite Premier League team is Liverpool, which I mistakenly thought would be good news to everyone living in Liverpool. And then I discovered that half the people living in Liverpool think that is a terrible thing. Because my first weekend here, I met an Everton fan, and I learned the hard way about that reality. Anyway, the other kind of football that you're talking about, I'm a big New England Patriots fan. The winners of last year's Super Bowl. I hope we win again, but I won't make those predictions. But I just want to close with some administrative announcements for next time. First, thank you all for joining. I know you're incredibly busy. Thank you for trying the Google Hangout format. We're going to email you the login for the blog. Please use that opportunity to respond and let us know what you thought of the Hangout, things we could do better next time. Number two, please let us know other speakers. I mean, this is your new, I talked a lot today. In the future, I don't want it to be me. I will, and my pledge to you is I will bring in really interesting speakers from the United States, from elsewhere, but I would really want to focus on the US and the UK. So if there are great speakers from the business world, from the academic world, from the government world that you'd be interested in hearing from, respond to that email, let me know, and I can do my best to try to go get those lined up for the fall. Thirdly, our next call, and the next one is going to be September 16th. We'll put this in the email, but September 16th, 2 o'clock in the afternoon. We're going to go back to conference call format for that one. And for the first few, we're going to alternate between conference call and Google Hangout. And David from my team is here. Anything I'm forgetting, David? No? Okay. Well, thank you. Oh, yeah. How could I forget? So thanks again. Last time we asked everyone to go find another person that they think would be a good fit. You all did that way more than that. So we grew 5 times as big. That's awesome. So if you could, those first-time participants, if you could go find someone else you think would be a good fit for YLUC, please let us know, and they can apply. And as you pitch and encourage them to join, you can remind them it's about connecting with fellow leaders. It's about coming together for events, sometimes at our place in London. But I think it's important to remember, you go back to that picture of Obama in the cornfield that we started out with. It's not all about London, certainly, and it's not all about coming to events at our place. Those are fun, but they're, by definition, kind of limited when we can physically get together. They're also about doing events where you live. So if you can organize something up in Newcastle or in Liverpool or in Leeds or Leicester, doesn't have to begin with an L, then we can come to that. Maybe I can come to it, or someone from our team can come to it. So please don't only think London, or think about, if you are in London, organizing something on your own. That's how the Obama campaign really grew. And the other thing we're going to do in YLUC, in addition to getting together, is getting together virtually like we are here. And then finally, letting you all know about exchange opportunities, either ones that we administer here at the embassy that we can let you know about, but the much broader number that we don't administer here, but that we know about and that you might be interested in, opportunities for exchange back to the United States. So anyway, thanks again for being part of YLUC. Look out for the email from us. Please keep the feedback coming. We want to make these better for all of you. Cheers.